Hey everyone, in today's video, we're going to learn how we can save a SharePoint online site as a template and how we can automatically apply the template to a newly created site using Power Automate. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Deepak. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to learn the end-to-end site provisioning process using Power Automate. To start with, the first thing that we need to understand how we can save a particular SharePoint online site as a site template. And site template is a collection of different information that you already have in your site. So for an example, this is a sample site that I've created. I applied a branding to this site, as you can see here. And also, if I go to the site content, I have some predefined list and library. So what I want to save this site as a template. And when my user is going to request a new SharePoint department site, I would like to apply this template so they will get this branding and they will also get list and library that I have created. So there are multiple ways to do it. I'm going to show you how you can achieve this using Power Automate. The first thing that you need, a site, so that I have. So you need to define your site that you are trying to save as a template. The second, you need to understand how you can do that. So for that, if you go to the Microsoft documentation under site template and site scripts, there is a section called REST API. Here we have a REST API endpoint called get site script from web. What this particular endpoint does, it allows you to extract the information from a SharePoint site and it will give you an output. And that output you can use to create a site script. Now what is site script? Site script is nothing but a JSON structure of your site. Okay, how are we going to use this in Power Automate? If you look at this small section here, this is a request, and how you can use this, I'm going to give you the small step-by-step information. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the flow.microsoft.com. I'm going to create a new flow. I'm going to create an instant flow. Okay, the next step that we're going to do, we're going to initialize a variable, and I will let you know why we are doing it. So search for variable. Okay, and I'm going to call it site info. It is type of array and leave it blank. Okay, and next I'm going to use an action in SharePoint that is get all list and libraries. Okay, and I'm going to select my SharePoint site that I'm trying to save as template. Why I'm doing this thing? Okay, if you look at the documentation here, so this part is your API. Okay, this is the API endpoint. You can copy and paste into your Power Automate. Everything from here till end is the information about the site that you are trying to save as a template. So the web URL, this is going to be the URL of your site that you're trying to save the template. And then you can see include branding. So if you make it false, the branding that you have in your site will not save. So if you want the branding to be part of your template, you can set this true. Then we have the include list. What this is required, it requires you to pass all the list name and the library name that you want to be included in this template. Okay, so if I've created 50 different lists and I want all of them to be included into my template, I need to write down the name of each and every list. Then we have the regional setting, external sharing capabilities, include the theme, and also include links to export items. So these are the different options that you have that you can use when you're creating or saving the site as template. What I'm going to do here, as I said, if I want to include all the list and library that I have in my site template, I don't want manually to update or create this information. Rather, I want to use Power Automate to extract this information and give me this detail so I can use it automatically. So for that only, we are using this action called get all list and libraries. So what it is going to do, it's going to get all the list and library information, and we can use that information. I'm going to save and run it so to show you how the response looks like, and then how we're going to extract that information to use it in our API call. Okay, done. So flow got completed successfully. And if I look at the response that I got, right, I get the name of the list, that is nothing but the list ID, display name, and the type. 101 is for the document library and 100 is for list. So you just need to remember these two numbers. And if you are using any other type of list or library, you will get those other numbers. If I look at this information here, how we need to pass. So if it is a list, I need to pass the list, that's my prefix, and then name of the list. And this information I'm getting in my display name, so I can use it as it is. If you want to create the document library also, then you can just discard this list part and start from the backslash and the name of your document library. That also we are getting. So now somehow we need to create this information for all the list and library that we are getting. So for that, I'm going to edit this flow again, click new step, and I'm going to add a condition. Okay, now the condition is if the response that I'm getting is type list, then I should get this kind of information. If it is the library, then I just need the name. I don't need to include the list. Okay, so I need to check what is the type of this list, whether it's a list or library. And if you look here, you don't have the type. So for that, I'm going to select the name. It's going to add the apply to each, because as you know, there are going to be more than one library. So that is perfectly fine. And then I'm going to copy this name. So Control select and Control C. I'll go to the expression, Control V. I'm going to delete the @. So this is the name. Instead of name, I will just say type. Okay, so I'm trying to extract the type information, and that's what I need. So condition is if the type is equal to 100, and 100 is list, right? And 101 is library. Now remember one thing, the response that I'm getting is not coming as 100 as a number, but it is coming as a string or text. So I'm just not going to type the 100 here. Instead, I will go to this expression. I will say string, and then I will pass 100 and click OK. So here what we are checking, if the type is 100, then I'm going to append to that array variable whatever list I'm getting. So search for variable and append to array variable, select the variable that we have created. And in the value, what we're going to do, if you remember, this information we are getting as a display name. So we have that. We just need to concat this information with this. So I'm going to go to the expression, use concat, single quote, lists, right? Now we need to get the display name. So I'll click OK for now here. I'm going to just pass the blank information, click OK. I'll go here on our check, copy this, come back here. Okay, come back to my concat and paste that items apply to each. It's nothing but the item, the current item that we are working on. And this is going to be my display name. Okay, and I'll click update. And I'm going to copy it because we need this on the no condition also. The no condition is where the type is document library. So I'm going to click and add an action, very same thing, and we're going to append to variable, select the variable name, go to expression, paste it, and this time we don't need the list, we just need the front slash. I'm going to close this apply to each, click on the new step, and just type in a compose action so that we can finally read this variable information. Click save, and I'm going to test to see how the information is getting stored into that array. Okay, and if I open this compose action, and you can see, right? So all of my list, the custom list that I have created in my sample site are already listed here. So we can use this output as it is in here. Okay, so we are good here. We collected all the information. Now we need to get the script. So for that, I'm going to click on new step, search for SharePoint. We're going to use send an HTTP request to SharePoint. Okay. Now, first thing you need to remember, when you are calling this function, make sure that you connect it to the same site, the one that you are trying to save as a template. Okay. This is the post method. So you need to select the post. The URL is, as I told you, this is the URL. So you can copy paste. In header, we're going to use one simple header, except in the value, application JSON or data verbose. So that's the header. And then I'm going to just copy everything from this curly to the last. Okay, so copying everything from here, and I'm going to paste in body section. What you need to replace, you need to replace this URL with the URL of your site that you are trying to save as template. Then you can select whether you want to include the branding, region setting, and all of this information as per your need. The only thing that I'm going to change here, so remove everything from start bracket to the end bracket, and then just use your output of this compose. So the information about all of the list and library you can just use straight here. Okay, and then we don't need this last column and the parenthesis. It should start from curly and end to the curly. Click save. Okay, so this action is going to extract the information from your site. Let's run it and see how the output looks, and then I will let you know what is the next step you should do. Okay, so it's completed, and if you open the get script and if you look at this information, it actually completed successfully. And if you look at this JSON, this is the entire information about your site, but it's not really readable, correct? You can't really use it as of now. So what we need to do, we need to get this information and make it to the readable JSON format. The only thing you need to remember that we have the D, that's the starting point. Then we have get site script from the web, and then we have the JSON where our information is. Okay, so remember these three things. I'm going to click edit, add a new action. It's called parse JSON, and in the content, I'll go to the content and expression, and this is what I'm going to use. So body get script, that's the name of my action, that is getting the script. I rename it to get site script. Then we had the D, if you remember. Then we had the get site script from the web, and then the JSON. So what I'm saying, whatever information that is coming in that JSON property, parse that to the JSON format. In the schema, I'm just going to have the two open curly and close curly. Okay, I'll click save. I'll run it again to show you now how the information looks. Completed. Now if you look at this information, it is much readable. So I have my site information ready. Now what I need to do, because this is nothing, it's just in my Power Automate, I need to get this information, create the site script. So site script will be used for me to create a template that I can save into SharePoint. Okay, so the next step, what we need to do, we need to use another action to create the site script. Still SharePoint, still send an HTTP request to SharePoint. Okay, we are going to use another endpoint, that is create site script, and you can see it here. And what this particular endpoint need, it needs the information about your site that we have already got it during our get site script method, and this is the URL for that. Okay, I'm going to just copy this entire thing. Okay, this time I can select my top level site. Method is post URL. I'm going to just paste what I copied. The only thing that you need to change is the title. So what you want to call it. Okay, so I'm going to call it, in the header section, we need to pass all of this information. Okay, so this is how my header should look like. And in the body, I need to just pass the output that I'm getting into my parse JSON, because my parse JSON is nothing but this information. So this will create the site script. Let me test this and we will see if this works. Okay, so it's completed successfully, and if I open this one, the output is going to look like this. What we are interested is this ID. This is my site script ID that I just created, and we need this ID to create the site design or site template. I'm going to click edit, this one, new step. We are going to again use the SharePoint API. So SharePoint send an HTTP request. This time we are going to use the third API endpoint, that is create site design. Okay, so if I go to the create site design, this is the information. This is the endpoint URL. So I'm going to copy that one. Go back. I'm going to select my URL. The method is going to be post. Header is simple. You can just use accept application. The URL is what we have just copied for the site design. Okay, and now the body. So if you go back to the documentation, and from this curly to this curly. This is the body information. I'm going to copy it, paste it here. So first thing is the title. This is the title of your template. This is important because once you're going to save this site script as a template or site design, it's going to be displayed into your SharePoint when the user is going to create the site. So this is the name that everyone will see. You can also provide some description. I'm going to keep it as it is. And then we have site script IDs. Now if you look at this one, this is actually can take more than one site script. So at this point, it is definitely important to understand the difference between site script and site design. So you can think like site scripts, your instruction or information about your site into the well-defined JSON format. You can have site script for a particular list. You can have site script for an entire site. You can have a separate site script for your theme, separate for your list and library. So you can create those different site scripts. Site design is what combine all of this together. So you have these multiple scripts, and then you can combine them all together and create your one single site design or site template. In this case, we have not created multiple scripts. So we are going to just use the one script ID that we have received in the previous step. Okay, and I'm going to rename this step. So now what we need to do, we need to replace this ID with the ID that we got in this create site design. Okay, so I'll select that, go to the expression, and I will use this simple expression. So body create site script, that's the name of my action that is creating the site script. And you remember there was an ID, so I'm just using that ID. Click OK. Now the web template. So these are the web template that you can use. 64 is for theme site. So if you are trying to create a site template for theme site, then you need to pass 64. 68 for your communication site template. So if you're trying to save a communication site with your branding and with your other information, then you have to use a 68. In our case, this site is the communication site, as you can see, that I used to create my custom site. So I'm going to use the 68 here. If you have an image that you like to show and where that image will show up, if you go to your site setting and apply site template, and if you go to your organization, this is where your image will show up. In my case, I don't have any image. Okay, I'm going to save. So until this point of time, we are able to save a site script. What I want to do, I want to run this once for a given site and get that template ID and make it available for all of my users so they can select that template in the future when I'm going to set up that automated site request process. So just to make this more easy to understand, I just created a simple process that I'm going to show you. Okay, so I have created this site. Here I have created two requests, site template master and site request. Let's talk about site template master. How I'm using the site template master, it has the title, site script ID and template ID. So what I'm trying to do, I have created this flow that's going to give me the template ID and the site script ID for the site that I'm trying to save as a template. I'm going to save that information into this list. So in the future, if I want to use those templates, I can easily get these ID. Okay, so once I have this site design successfully done, the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly create an item into that particular SharePoint list. Okay, it's my site template master. Title, I can just give any. Site script ID, as you know, this is your site script ID. So select the site script ID, go to the expression, paste it, okay. The template ID is the output of this particular step. And to show you that, let me run it. So I will show you how the output look like and then how you can get the ID from this particular step. So save and test. Okay, so flow completed successfully, but I'm more interested to show you this design step. So if you look, this is the output of the site design. The output looked like this. So we have the D, the create site design, and if you go a little bit more further down, you have this ID. This is your template ID. So I'm going to add it, go to my create item, and in the template ID, select, go to the expression, and this is how you can extract that information. Okay, so body, the name of your action, my name, action name is create site design, then D, then create site design, and ID. Okay, Click OK, save, and we are going to run this one, and this should actually add this custom site template ID and the site script ID into that master template. Okay, so flow completed successfully, and if I go back to my list here, wonderful, right? So now I have my demo site template ready to go. Okay, so what we have done so far, so we were able to save a particular site as a site template. Now you can apply this logic to any other site that you have and make your template ready to go. But I don't want to stop here. Instead, I want to create a second process where I can allow user to request a new site and also select the template that they want on that particular site. So for that, I have created another list called site request. In this list, I have these different columns. So I'm going to click on the new item. So the title, this is the title of your site that you are requesting, URL, what the URL you want. And then I created the site template lookup column. This column is looking up to my site template master, and it is going to show me all the template available. So when I'm requesting, I can select a particular template. I can provide the site owner, and I'm going to use Power Automate to automatically create a site based on the information provided and also apply this template to that newly created site. So we are going back to the Power Automate. This flow is good to go. You can save it. You can use it for any other site that you have. For the second flow, I'm going to create an automated flow when an item is created. Click Create. Site address is the address of this particular site where I have the request list. And this is my site request list. So whenever someone is going to request a site, I want to automatically create a site, and I also wanted to apply the template. Okay, the next step that we need to use another API to create the site. Okay, and for that, this is the documentation. I'll add the link how you can use the REST API to create a modern site. So the URL is this one. Go back to your flow, click new step, SharePoint, and again send an HTTP request. Okay, site address, I'm going to select my root. Method is going to be post. Okay, the URL. So this is the URL. Header, you can see the header here. You can just copy and paste. Okay, so accept auditor version. Okay, then we have the body. So I'm going to just copy this entire thing and then I'll walk you through. Okay, so this is the body. The title is the title of your site. The URL of your site that you're trying to create. LC ID is the language ID. So 1033 is for English. Classification. This is nothing but will show up under your site title. So if you want to classify this, I'm not going to do that. So I can leave it blank. Description. Web template. This is for the communication site, and you can find here. So this template is for the communication site and not group associated team site as HTS3. Okay. Then we have the site design ID. This is what we have done in our previous step, right? We created the template ID. That's what we are going to pass here. The owner and any of the extension ID. So these are the different information that you need to pass. Because we are running this based on the item created, all of this information we have already asked the user to provide. So the title is the title, what I'm gonna add here. The URL is going to be the URL. Language ID, I'm keeping it English. I'm not going to change the template because my template is using communication site. And then we're going to pass this design ID. So if I show you my list setting, and this is my site template lookup. So I created this lookup column, and I'm also requesting the template ID. Okay, and if I go back to my master, this is the information. So I am looking up to this title so that user can easily read what template they are selecting, but I'm also trying to get this template ID information that I can use in this flow. Okay, and you can see this easily here. So this is my site template lookup column, and it is also pulling the information on template ID column. So ID and the value, what we need, the value. Okay, so this is how we're going to pass the template ID. And the owner information, we are already asking that. Okay, so I'm just going to pass the site owner email address. And that's it. So what this is going to do, this is going to create the site. Then you need to apply your site design. You need to make the last API call to apply the site design. And for that, If you go to this REST API, there's an action called add site design task to the current web. And I'm going to select this one. This is the URL that we're going to use. It's very straightforward. You just need the endpoint and your site design ID. Okay. I'm going to search SharePoint, send HTTP request. Method is post site address. Make sure that you are selecting site where you want to apply this design. It's not going to show up here because the site is not created yet. You're going to create this. So enter custom value, and then we're going to select the URL, because this is the URL of the site that we are going to create. Okay. The URI or the API endpoint is this one. This is going to apply the design for this particular site. You can keep the header blank. Here in the body, you just need to use this structure. Okay. So curly site design ID, you can check it here as well. So site design ID and the template ID or the design ID. In our case, the site design or the template ID we are getting in this lookup value. Okay. So site design ID, and then you need to pass the design ID. Click save, and we are going to test this. Okay. I'm going to my site request, click new request. And then I'm going to select the demo site template. Okay. Site owner, I'm going to keep it to myself. Click save. Flow should get triggered, and let's see if this works successfully or not. So what this flow is going to do is going to create the site and pick the site template and apply it. So this completed. So let's see our site is created or not. So I'm going to copy the URL, open a new tab, paste it. Site is created, but if you notice, the template is not applied, and you can notice here, right? Applying site template. So this takes a little bit time based on how much list library or how customized your branding is. So just give it a couple of minutes and then just refresh it. It's completed. So now when I'm going to refresh, you're going to see the new design is going to apply to the site, and also those list and library that we have here, like department document, issue tracker, employee onboarding, all of should be created. Refresh it. And if I go to the site content, you can see issue tracker, employee, all of the list and library are automatically created. Yeah, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.